So my name's Colin Schiller, and I'm president and co-founder of a company called Everwise. First, thanks for the team here at the Meetup for having us in. We really appreciate it, and appreciate the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about what we do. We are about 3 years old. Our company is kind of based both here in New York and in San Francisco. And the overall objective that we have is to really help companies to develop their people. So I thought I'd start off by just telling you a little bit about the kind of challenge that we look at, what we help folks do. And then I can talk about who we work with, a little bit about the team, and then show you some software. All right, so that's what we'll get through. So, you know, the reality here is that this is really what a career looks like today. Right? So my first job out of school, I was actually one of those guys on the trading floor in Chicago. I don't know if anyone remembers Trading Places. I had the coat, I had the phones, I had the hand signals, right? And that's what I did. That was my first job out of college. It was like really fun. It was a very, very specific thing to do. I did that for about a year and a half. And I realized, first of all, that like that world, by the way, it's all electronic now, right? It's all online. So that world was going away. But that also maybe that didn't fit with what I wanted to do. So I made a pretty big shift. I said, you know, I'm pretty good at reading and writing. I like to talk to people. So I hopped over to PR. I did that very, very briefly. So one of the lessons I learned from the first rung of the ladder was, hey, if it's not for you, don't stick around for too long. So I was there for about a month. I learned to write really good press releases. I'm very good at that if anybody needs that done. But after that, I was like, okay, wait, so what is it that what do I really want to do? And I was like, I like figuring stuff out. I'm not quite sure. For me, I was lucky enough to be a very early hire at a brand new startup here in the city. Right? So being at a startup in the enterprise software space, I got a new job every 6 months. Right? The company grew, there were new challenges, I got to redefine things, so I kind of jumped around, I learned new skills, but it's all about learning new skills all the time, figuring out new things to do. A really interesting experience, and that startup did pretty well. We wound up being acquired by a big company. So I went from being part of a team of about 25 people, just figuring stuff out. What's the challenge? Let's go solve it. And then one day I walked in and I worked at Cisco. And so that was really interesting. It was cool. There were some really cool different things to do. But it was a wildly different experience. And it was a wildly different place to start to build my career and to think about what to do next. The funny thing about it that I realized when I was there was, hey, it's still the same thing. So even today in a large organization, if you just go and kind of get in one track and put your head down and keep going, it's pretty hard to keep jumping along the way that you do. I looked around and I saw that the people who were doing well were leaving and coming back, or they were going from one group to the next and they were constantly learning something new. And so, you know, people are always investing in their own growth. You gotta really dig in and do it for yourself. And companies actually realize this, right? Like companies realize that the workforce, everybody needs to learn. That's a really big number up there on the screen. Right? We spend a lot of time, there's a lot of press talking about what's spent in online advertising every year. Like that number is actually double. Right? So companies spend a lot of money trying to help their people grow, trying to invest in their people. But most of that money gets spent on training, right? And when you think about, you know, we can always do the fun thing, how many people in this room have been to a corporate training class in the last year? Right? We can do a little hand raise, right? And how many people remember more than 10% of what they had in the session? Right? So for the benefit of the camera, there are far fewer hands out in the audience with question number 2. So one of the things that you know a lot of progressive leaders in HR and in learning and develop look at is this notion of 70-20-10, right? How people learn. 70% of your learning should actually be on the job. 20% is actually interpersonal. It's mentoring, it's coaching, it's things between people. 10% is training. And so training is definitely valuable and has its place. But our belief at Everwise in what we come in and do every day is that in most instances, people learn best from other people. Right? So I've talked for a while and you're like, what do these guys do? So what we actually do, we go in and we work with organizations and we have a new approach to connecting people to learn from one another. These are mentoring programs. Right? So we have a community of folks who we've developed over the past 3 years who've come to us and said, you know what, I'm really interested in mentoring another mid-career professional. There are plenty of places I can go and I can mentor a high school kid, I can mentor someone, coming out of college, whatever the case may be. But I'm actually interested in mentoring another mid-career professional. We then go to organizations and we say, what are you doing for your talent? Not the folks who you get coaches for, but the up-and-coming people within your organization. And we believe that mentoring is a really powerful engine to help you develop those people. These are some of the customers who we work with. We have a global client base at this point, and these are some of the leaders around the world who are using us to help invest in their workforce and to help develop their people. I promised a little bit about our team, right? So we have a fairly varied background, startup, enterprise software. We've got some top-end HR folks in the group as well. My little joke is covered up by the sharing thing on the screen. But so that's a little bit about us. That's a little bit about what we look to do every day and what we deliver with our customers. The next thing that I can do is just show you a bit of the software and then take questions. So I'll escape out of here and we'll see how big this stuff really is on the screen. So what I'm not going to do is take you through filling out forms. But in any sort of scenario like this, the first thing that we need to do is really learn something about the people who are coming into the system, right? If you're coming in as a protege, that's what we refer to, the mentee, the person who's coming in to learn, we want to work with you. We want to take you through an assessment, understand where are you in your career, what it is that you're really looking to work on. We're doing the same thing with our mentors. We actually have a lot of technology behind the scenes that cranks through, starts making matches, recommendations, but because this is about connecting people, we also have a human layer on top of our technology. So what I have here now, you can see I've logged in, I'm a protege. I'm actually, for this particular partnership, I want to work on my entrepreneurship skills. I also want to work on building out my team, right? We're growing, we're hiring, just by the way, engineers, salespeople, all that kind of good stuff. I want someone to help me think through that. And so you can see here, I've got a team in place. So Bill is a mentor who I've been connected to, who I'm working with on the platform. You can see that we're actually going to kick off next week. I also have someone that here we call a relationship manager. That's the concierge that we provide. One thing in a mentoring partnership is not just about matching people up and saying, hey, good luck, see you later. Our entire approach and our entire product is about bringing people into the process to help out and to deliver some accountability for you. And then also taking learnings that all of those people are gleaning from what's working for other folks on the platform and starting to say, oh, you know what? Colin, you're an entrepreneur, you're thinking about building your business. Are you making the kinds of things that people want? And so all of the content that's actually here on the platform, they're just small things that people can go and work on. And all of this comes from the mentoring partnerships that are out there in our world. So you can see, hey, do people want what you're making? In this case, if I scroll down, I can see that another mentor in the community has actually suggested or has inspired this mission, is what we call these. And there's some things that I can go and I can work on either on my own or with my partner. So in this case, if it's trying to figure out, is the product I'm building the right thing? All right, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to read this particular section of the Lean Startup. I can go do that now. If I want to go do that later, I can also schedule this, right? I can say, hey, set something in my calendar. I've left some time out on Friday afternoons. I can also go in here and say, well, that's cool. That's what was on my page. But what else is out there? What are the other kinds of things that I could look at? What are people using that's working well? I can come in here. Here's another thing that I can work on. In this case, a video has been pulled in. And if it's something that maybe I want to work on with my mentor the next time we get together, I can come in and now I can say, hey, I want to suggest this mission. And of course, here in my demo, there we go. And I can send this over to him. So the next time that we get together, hey, he'll be notified this is something that Colin was interested in. This is something that we can look at and that we can work on. So we have a lot of these features where folks can suggest things back and forth to one another. They can kind of track progress. We also have the opportunity, beyond just being connected to a single mentor, if I want to come in and get more engaged deeply in a broader community, we have folks coming in, asking questions. Here on the demo site, it's a little bit similar, what we've got up there. But people can come in and they can ask questions. They can either share a bit about themselves. It can be anonymous. This is a community of folks who all shown up to help others grow in their careers. put out something that you want to work on, and folks come in and actually come back with some pretty thoughtful answers and context, and all of this is a nice virtuous cycle as we build upon it and then package that up for the next pair that comes through and decides to work on these particular skills or something else in their mentoring partnership. So that's the quick overview of what we do, a little look at the software, and I'm more than happy to take any questions that anybody's got. Yeah?
What is the mentor's incentive for participating?
So the mentors volunteer and companies pay us, and we're very upfront about that. And so our mentors, that was the first thing we tested when we did the business, when we started the business. We said, what is the mentor's incentive? Is this something that people are interested in doing? And so there's obviously the give back. Many people look at what we're doing and they say, wow, this is awesome. I wish something like this existed earlier in my career. We make a lot of, we'd like to think that we deliver a lot of value up front to the mentor. So we say, we're only going to reach out to you if we think that there's someone who's motivated, who's talented, and who we think that you're uniquely suited to help, right? The way that we there's a bunch of social engineering involved in what we do, and so the mentor always has the option to accept the partnership or not. So if you've signed up and we said, hey, we have someone we think you could really help, then it's up to you to say, yep, this works for me and I have the time right now or I don't want to. Once people get involved, beyond that initial give back, what we constantly hear is that people learn a ton. So every time that they go and they have the opportunity to work with somebody else in this kind of relationship, they're going to re-examine all of these questions for themselves. They're going to learn, they're going to grow in their career. We hear people saying that it's an opportunity to make an awesome new connection. We hear other people saying it's an opportunity to develop skills of their own that they actually find valuable in their own career. So when we got going, literally I assumed that every mentor who signed up they just retired, they'd had some time on their hands, and they were ready to do something like this. I'd say north of 70% of our mentors are active operating executives who view this as something that they want to do. It accrues to their own skills, it keeps them sharp, they learn, and they have that give back factor. Yeah.
Do the mentors have like a page where they're reviewed, or is that somewhere that's aggregating their views and rankings? Because like you said, this could be leveraged as a tool, like an engineer that wants to be pushed up to a manager. Having some way of like interacting with people and being rated on it could show his company that, hey, look, I'm ready to like take on this role where I'm not just coding, I'm actually managing.
Yep, absolutely. And so that is roadmap for us. That's something that we're going to be getting. We get all of that back right now. So the first phase of our business was all about demonstrating to organizations who we're working with the value that we're delivering to them. And we funnel that feedback back to mentors. We don't give them a good way to display it yet, but that's absolutely something that...
real version of endorsements on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly, right? From like real people based on, yeah. And that we did, yes. Yep.
Since the enterprise is paying for this, do they get any say-so in driving kind of the direction of what they should be mentoring? I mean, they're paying the bill, right?
Yeah, good question. So, no. So one of the reasons, so one of the things that, and this is part of my job, like one of the things that we're a little bit religious about is that when this works, it's because we actually create a safe space for the employee to come in and say, hey, look, this is what I really need to work on. Because more often than not, what we're finding is it's like, oh my God, I got this new promotion. I have no idea what I'm doing. And the last thing I can do is go to my boss who just gave me this promotion and tell him I have no idea what I'm doing, right? So we push back very hard on that. What we are seeing and what is, you get into this stuff and then you start looking at, well, what are the different packages that you layer on top of your base? In some instances, we will roll out programs where we involve the manager much more deeply. But our sort of base premise is that this is the kind of thing that you do when you want to truly invest in your people. And we want the people who come in to have been given this opportunity and then have opted into it. And so, the best way that we think to show folks that you're really sort of honoring that investment and honoring their talent is to say, this is something that is for you to do, to work on what you think is most important.
So to play off that example, how fine-tuned is the search that, hey, I just went from associate to VP this month and now I'm going to finally manage people? Could I search for people that made VP within the let's say 18 to 24 months ago, who made not my boss, but colleagues of the boss? who could potentially offer advice that they just went through this recently?
So we don't expose that to the user right now. We actually look at a lot of that on the back end. So part of what we're doing when people come in, we're actually looking at, we have our own notion of leveling. That's part of the assessment. We kind of understand where you sit and what transition you just went through or what transition you're approaching. But that's certainly something that inside of an organization we would look to expose. When you're being matched outside of the organization, part of this is that it is a little bit of a black box to the user when they come in. They know that we have people behind the scenes, so it's not just pure tech that's running, and that's part of how we sort of orient folks into the program. But that's definitely something that factors into what we do. I kept looking that way, so I'm going to go that way for a minute.
Two related questions. One, have you run into solicitation issues? And two, do you provide a closed circuit solution for very large enterprises that have 100,000 employees and can find mentors and mentees internally?
I'll answer in reverse order. For the second, yes, we do. When we started the business, we said, hey, we're going to have this differentiated thing. We're going to come in. It's all going to be cross-company. Tons of our customers, including a bunch of nonprofits, by the way, that we work with, have come and said, look, I've got my own community. Can I use your technology? And so we do that, and we offer our technology to people to simply run on their own. They can also bring our people in to operate it for them. Right? So yes, for large populations, and we white label it, we do all of that sort of stuff in those scenarios. To your first question about solicitation, yes, we did. We've worked to solve that. When we first got started, the big question we got was, well, what if my people get poached? You're bringing in this mentor from outside the organization. What if they recruit my people away? So we did all this work and like upfront messaging and legal terms and stuff about there's no recruiting. This is a non-recruitment thing. And then lo and behold, with our first batch of pilot customers, the thing that came up wasn't that, it was solicitation. Hey, I've been giving you great advice as a mentor. Do you think maybe there's an opportunity for me to do some consulting with your organization? So we took a similar approach to that we did to the non-recruitment, which is that we're just really direct and upfront about it. And at part of the screening that we do on the mentor side is we do a motivation screen, and we're pretty strict with that. So not totally solved for, but we've definitely addressed it.
Can you describe the bench of consultants that you have and what are their backgrounds? Is it solely to teach people how to rise into upper management, or is it in the technical area, the arts area? I mean, what's the roster of mentors? What do they look like?
Sure. So the work that we do at Everwise, we work mostly in what we think of as the corporate use case, right? So we work with enterprises. So we have mentors from over 147 countries. We have a chart on the distribution, mostly sort of director, VP, C-level folks. Most of the work that people are doing, I think that we have like 60% of the Fortune 500 represented, but we have a good spread from very large organizations down to mid-size, down to startups and things like that. Most of the things that people are working on when they come into our program, it is very, very rare that somebody comes in and they say, I want to get better at a particular programming language. Like what people are coming into our program, they're saying, you know what? I'm in this matrixed organization and I need to work on my influencing skills. Or I have a really challenging boss, I want to work on managing up. Or the one that actually is our favorite, because it comes up all the time. In my last review, I didn't get the promotion and they told me that I need to think more strategically. I think I'm doing that, but like honestly, I guess I don't know what that means. So I'd like to work with someone, again, in this sort of safe private space where I can be like, please explain to me what that means. And so the nice thing about that is that the skills are very transferable. So we find that actually some of the more interesting matches that come out where people just have awesome stories are when they're across industry and things like that.
Time for one more.
All right.
Do you give people the opportunity to select the characteristics of the mentor?
As far as like personality?
I'm a woman, I want a woman mentor,
Yes.
or I'm a, mixed race, whatever, and I want somebody like me who's navigated those waters before.
We do. We design away from that, but we give people that option. So the way that we sort of design the whole interaction is to say, hey, look, the original thesis for the business was you go to your friends and family for advice. They have your best interests at heart, but they don't really know what you're working on. Your best mentor or advisor is probably outside of your existing network, right? That's where we looked at it and said, hey, there's kind of a technology problem here, right? Like there's work that can be done. So we like to sort of design towards go to the widest possible ocean, but we definitely allow if people are like, hey, I definitely want to work with a woman or something like that, we'll work to honor that. What we've also found as we've grown is that in many organizations on top of our core offering, we'll do more programmatic offerings. So whether that's managers or things like that, and then obviously when someone comes into a program with that flavor, all of those preferences get kind of baked in.
Right, that's very common.
Yep.
People want to talk to somebody who's got their same characteristics and has lived through those experiences.
Yep. So we'll honor that for sure. Cool. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me in.